Hello, everyone. I apologize for the technical difficulty. It seems that there was a technical difficulty in passing through the lobby and sharing the content. So we hope that you're hearing us well now. If there is any difficulty, please put your concern in the Q&A tool so we could make things work and have a smooth continuance of our webinar. Welcome to this mentorship webinar for barrier-free accessibility, mobility, pitch of competition. We are so delighted to have you all here today. This webinar is led by co-chairs of this challenge, Alan, Charlie, and myself, as you know us already from the previous webinar, along with our community partner representatives, Mr. David Demers and Mr. Louis Greco from the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, CNIB. I also would like to announce that the webinar is recorded and will be shared. We have a packed agenda, so let's get started, especially now that we are a bit behind time. Once again, congratulations on your accepted proposal. In this webinar, we are going to first go through the competition timeline. We will review the outline of the key dates and the deadlines of the different stages. Then we will discuss the presentation requirements. It's very important to stick to these guidelines to ensure that we have a consistent experience for all the participants during the pitch of day presentation. Then we will move on to the general feedback on proposals. We have reviewed the initial submissions and gathered some common themes and points of improvement. This feedback is meant to help you refine your work and increase your chance of success. Next, we are pleased to share some insights from the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, CNIB. At that point, I will hand over the presentation to David. Their expertise is invaluable, and we hope that this information could guide you in your work. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask using the Q&A tool or during the Q&A session at the end. And then finally, we will have the closing remarks to wrap. So, as you may remember, we started from April 1st with the kickoff of this competition. The submission deadline was extended to July 8th. Then on July 31st, you received the notice of acceptance. There is only one more step to take, the pitch of presentation, which will be on September 18th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It will happen at the IEEE Smart Mobility Conference venue. You could present in person or virtually, and the winner will be announced during the closing ceremony of the conference from 6 to 8 p.m. on September 18th. There are three elements that we consider when scoring the solutions that you pitch: the proposal document, the video of the proposed solution, and the presentation that you will have on September 18th. The solution needs to be original, human-centered, executable, and usable. As you see over here, the presentation at the pitch of day and the human-centered aspect of your solution are weighted most heavily, 25%, followed by originality 20%, and then execution and usability 15% each. We will discuss these requirements further shortly. So, as I mentioned, there are three elements. The proposal, which you already have submitted and it has been reviewed. It was expected to include a link to a 3 to 4 minute video. If you haven't submitted the video link yet, please add it to the last slide of your presentation file. Your presentation on pitch of day is going to be, needs to be designed for a 5-minute, maximum 5-minute presentation, followed by Q&A session. So we do not recommend that you play your video during the presentation, but you may retrieve some points by including this link available to the judges to check it out on their own time. The Google Drive file folder will be shared with you with each of the teams. To upload your files, the presentation slide, you will receive an email with the details and instruction soon about this. Now let's go over the key evaluation criteria for your solution. The first one is the novelty. We are looking for the solutions that are entirely novel or offer a fresh approach to the targeted challenge. Your solution should bring something new to the table and address the problem in a unique way. The second criteria is the human-centered aspect of your solution. Your solution needs to be usable by the targeted users and should have been developed with the feedback from the target user groups. It should address everyday mobility needs of the target users effectively. The third criteria is the feasibility. It's important that your solution is practical and achievable. So you need to consider whether it can be realistically implemented given the current technology and resources. Then we have the implementation. We are interested in whether your solution is something that mobility service providers would be willing to adopt and benefit from. It should accommodate the needs of the target users in a meaningful way. Then we have the user adoption. The strategy for the implementation should be well thought out, including a user value-based assessment. This will ensure that your solution is embraced by the intended users. And finally, the overall quality of your proposal, the effectiveness of your presentation, your professionalism in presenting and answering the questions, they will be all evaluated. And each component plays a crucial role in the assessment. Please keep in mind all these criteria as you finalize your solution and preparing your presentations. If you would like to learn more about the rubric that was used for the evaluation, you can scan this QR code. Registration for the challenge and the presentation is free, whether you attend in person or virtually. But if you wish to attend the other sessions of the IEEE Smart Mobility Conference, then you will need to register as an attendee, which would be through the webpage of the conference. Also, IEEE organizers have some recommendations for the accommodations with discounts if you would like to attend the conference or attend the challenge in person. So please feel free to contact the IEEE organizers for more information about the conference and about the accommodation if needed. Now let's discuss the feedback on your proposals, focusing on several key aspects. As I mentioned, we have reviewed the proposal submissions and gathered these common points of improvement. The first item is the comparative analysis with current state of the art. We will evaluate how your proposal solution compares to the existing solutions in the field. So it's important that you discuss and highlight what sets your proposal apart and how it advances the current state of the art. The second item was the scalability and adoption. So we are looking at the scalability of your solution, how well it can be implemented on a larger scale and its potential for adoption. It's important that you consider whether your solution can be widely adopted and what factors might influence its broader implementation. The third item was about the user studies and the details of these user studies. You need to provide details on any user studies you have conducted or plan to conduct. We are interested in understanding how you have tested or will test your solution with real users and how these studies inform the development of your proposal, improve your solution. The fourth item was about the subjective analysis of the desirability. So you need to discuss the subjective aspect of your solution, including its desirability from the perspective of the potential users. This includes how appealing and user-friendly, for example, your solution is perceived to be. And I would like to again remind you about the video submission, that if you haven't already submitted it, please ensure that you include the link in your presentation slide deck. This video should effectively showcase your solution and complement your proposals. At this point, I would like to hand the presentation over to David from CNIB. Then we will come back to have the Q&A session and discuss it further.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I will just take over the presentation and share my slide, my PowerPoint presentation. Just give me a quick second here. Just need to find my presentation. It's open, but I just need to share it. Okay, you know what? I guess I'll just share my entire screen here. Okay, here we go. And let me just make that bigger. All right, so welcome everyone, and thanks for being here today. Thanks for your submissions, and thank you also for your intent on making a solution that is going to improve mobility and accessibility and so on. My name is David Demers, and I'm the Managing Director at CNIB Access Labs. I'm also a member of the Sight Loss community. I'm a guide dog user. And do forgive me, at times you might see me lean forward and you might just see my forehead, and that's because I'm looking at my notes. But I should be able to do most of the presentation without looking at my notes. I'm also accompanied by my colleague and friend, Louis Greco, who is our Manager of Regulatory Affairs and Advocacy. So just real quickly, for those of you who don't know who CNIB is, some of you I believe are not from Canada. We are a pan-Canadian nonprofit organization that is more than 105 years old in Canada, and CNIB stands for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. So we're a nonprofit organization that helps people with blindness and partial vision to integrate into society. We advocate for their needs. We do research to understand their condition in society and how we can improve it. And we provide a whole wide gamut of programs and services for people with blindness to cope with their blindness, to also learn how to participate in society and be members of society just like everyone else is. At CNIB Access Labs, and first I just want to say a quick word about why accessibility is important. So keep in mind that there are millions of people with a disability in Canada, and that's as per the latest research. Just people with blindness, we're looking at approximately 2 million people. In the world, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people with a disability. So there really is a lot of users out there that if things are not designed for them to be able to use, then hundreds of millions of people are being excluded. Hundreds of billions of dollars in untapped purchasing power of these communities. And that's with existing employment rates. So if the world were made more accessible for people with disabilities, employment rates would rise, and those billions of dollars in purchasing power would significantly increase. So it's not just the right thing to do, but it's also a great business decision to be accessible and to do that through inclusive design. At Access Labs, we help organizations with inclusive design. And our mission is elevating customer experience and creating safe and inclusive spaces for all Canadians. We're powered by a workforce of trained and talented accessibility and usability testers with lived experience. CNIB Access Labs is Canada's best-in-class accessibility consulting and testing service provider from digital ecosystems to built environments and everything in between. So it's really important to keep in mind that there's this intersectionality between digital and physical that is often a gap, and we need a holistic approach to make sure that everything's accessible. Now, the next couple slides, I'm going to go through really quickly for the sake of recuperating a bit of the time since we started a little late. Really just a bunch of slides that explain Access Labs, but I'll go through those quickly so that I can quickly get into the fun and more important part about giving you a few tips and tricks about accessibility. Um, at Access Labs, we help a wide range of organizations in different sectors to become accessible, whether it's transportation, financial institutions, government, technology firms, architecture and design, et cetera, and et cetera. We work with a lot of different industry segments. Um, we test a wide variety of things, whether it's in the digital or built environment, including websites, applications, devices, self-service terminals, which is a good example of the intersectionality of physical and digital spaces, where you have a physical device in a built environment that has a digital component to it, which needs to be accessible in all those different ways. Finding the self-service terminal all the way to being able to use the device, the terminal itself. We test through a variety of different means, and we have experts as well who do auditing, but our lived experience testers, we will do testing through different means using different technologies like screen readers, magnification technology and software, and alternative means of using computers as well, like a dictation, switches, head-mounted devices, and so on and so forth. So we really extensively test, and so it's important to really cover all those different bases, if you will. And this can be done through various means like surveys, focus groups, uh, walkthroughs like in a built environment, um, and solution testing through user experience testing. Our testers, I'll go through this really quickly, but essentially our testers are real people with lived experience. So they're people of different age groups, different backgrounds of life, different proficiency levels with the technology that they use. And so these are real users that actually use the technology on a daily basis. They're either, a very advanced to beginner level, so that we can really get that variety to get a good sample set of feedback from a wide variety of users. And so we need, a variety of people that are good communicators. And so this team is really important for us to be able to achieve inclusive design that I'll be talking about a bit later. Workplace accommodations, I'll really get through this fast, but one thing that I like to always remind people is that we can spend a lot of time, and we often do spend a lot of time making products or services accessible for clients. But what about employees? And it's important to never forget about employees. You might have employees that need accessibility, or you could be able to hire more and tap into different groups and communities to and expand your pool of employees and so on and so forth. So it's always important to also think about the clients, the users, and the employees and the staff delivering the service. And so at Access Labs, we also provide workplace accommodation and evaluation through various means, whether it's the built environment, the devices that a person uses, and also more in terms of vision loss rehabilitation, for example, how to use your white cane, mobility orientation, and so on and so forth. So lots of different ways to achieve this. Built environment assessments as well. We look at a whole lot of different things that need to be taken into consideration. For example, if you're building a navigation and wayfinding solution, or if you're trying to do something in the built environment. So we look at a lot of things like signage, lighting, surface finishes, obstacles, emergency exits, emergency equipment, safety zones, um, circulation in the building, ramps, for example, lifts and elevators, corridors and open areas, so on and so forth. There's a lot of information here, but just to give you an idea, there's a lot of obstacles out there, and so it can be challenging to create a solution that will ensure not only an accessible journey, but a safe one. And so that leads into like navigation and wayfinding solutions. And again, I think I'll skip through this one fairly quickly, but there's a wide range of different technological solutions that can sort of bring the outdoor GPS indoors, if you will, where someone could get in a complex built environment, turn-by-turn navigation. And this can be done through different means with beacon technology or LiDAR mapping, image recognition, dead reckoning, all these different types of technologies that can be used ideally in combination to avoid issues and to make sure that the most accurate experience is available. But lots is happening in the space of navigation wayfinding solutions at this time. And the benefits, there's benefits and so on about how, this is provided free of use. It provides independence to travel, increased privacy and safety, and it has to be fully accessible. And these kind of solutions help you meet, or your clients meet, accessibility legislation requirements, making physical locations accessible. There can be no infrastructure cost depending on what type of solution is used, so on and so forth. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of different nav and wayfinding solutions out there. So if any of you are working on that kind of solution, the comment about comparing to the state of the art and how you believe you're improving on that is going to be crucial. We also work on accessible communication materials, and there's so many accessible formats, and PDFs, EPUB formats, sign language, closed captioning, braille transcription, digital and social media communications. There's ways to make those accessible, descriptive video, clear print guidelines for printing things in an accessible way. So these are all different things you can consider and things that we do at Access Labs. So let's get into the more interesting part, I think, and I hope for you all. Kind of gonna get into some sort of like mentorship tips to help you think about how to improve your proposal and your project. Now, I like to use this quote that I got from a colleague, and it's a quote from the former COO of the Royal National Institute for the Blind. His name is David Clark, and he said, "When you design for anyone, you design for everyone." And that's important to keep in mind. If your product, your service can be used by absolutely anyone, then you're sure that you're designing for everyone. It sounds so simple and straightforward, but often that's not what's happening in design, and that's why I'm going to talk about inclusive design principles. Now, first though, a few things about document accessibility. All of you prepared proposals, and I don't, how could I say this? I must admit that every single proposal that we received did have an accessibility issue for someone like me who's blind and uses a screen reader. And you never know who might receive your proposal and might need accessibility. So there were documents that had images that explained important stuff that I could not understand because there was no explanation or alternative text. Navigating the document, thankfully, this is more for very long documents, but navigating the documents was sometimes a challenge. And so a few things that you can do to improve the accessibility of your documents. These are just tips, and you can look this up on the web. There's a lot of information about this. Microsoft actually offers in their Word, PowerPoint, and Excel software an accessibility checker. So look at that. Go to the tools menu and do the accessibility checker. It's actually quite good. It does not give you a perfect document, but it'll certainly help. So it'll tell you, where you can make improvements. It'll tell you all the images that require alternative text. And so, there's a bit of work that you need to do to make those changes, but it's very easy to do with that accessibility checker. So you really go a long way if you use that. So please do. But another good thing to keep in mind is use the styles. So in other words, if you make a document that has a section with a title or a header that we often call it, don't just make the text a bigger font and bold. Because what happens then is when someone like me uses a screen reader, it'll just read all the text out loud to me. That's what a screen reader does. But it also is able to identify things like headings. And so so imagine you're reading a newspaper article and you have all these different articles uh, spread out on the page, and you want to read maybe like the third article down. Well, if you didn't make your document using proper headings and you just made the text bold for the title, then my screen reader will just read it like any other text. So to read that third article somewhere in that newspaper, I'm going to have to read everything. And so that's a problem. And it's not giving me the same experience as sighted people who can just look with their eyes and see a bold title and be like, okay, that's what I want to read. So if you use headings in the styles of Word, there's a thing called styles in Word, and there are headings and titles and different options you can use. If you use those, then my screen reader can navigate by heading or by title of each section. So that's huge improvement that you can do by using styles, and then you mark your body text as body, etc. So look into that and please use styles. Um, all your images need to have alternative text to describe the image or be marked as decorative if it doesn't help in the comprehension of the document. And do very much avoid putting an image that has text because you may as well just write the text in the document so a screen reader can read it. But if it's an image, then you need to explain in the alternative text what that image is, what it describes, and in the given context. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but you can describe what the meaning of the image is in the context of your document. So that look into how to do alternative text. Create meaningful and accessible links. This is something a lot of people do and don't realize, but a screen reader can also navigate by link on a page. So if you embed a link in some text, which is often done in Word, then my screen reader will read it and say link. But if you just write something like, go see the document at this link, and the word link is the link, and you do that several times in the document, and I navigate by link in my document using the screen reader, all I'm going to hear is link, link, link. I have no idea what it's linking to. So what you need to do in that case is don't embed the link in the word link, but in something more meaningful. Like you could say, uh, read the document about our proposal, and the whole word document for our proposal would be the link. And so that way, when I navigate with the screen reader, I would navigate by link, and instead of link, 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 it would be uh, read the document proposal, visit, our web page, and so I would know what those links are. Um, Avoid complex formatting. A newspaper is a good example. If you do a text with two columns side by side, that can cause issues for a screen reader. So, avoid complex formatting with things all over the place. Keep it in a linear fashion. Minimal use of graphs is better, and use properly formatted tables. Now, that's a little more complex. I don't have time to get into it, but you can look up on the web how to make an accessible table. The accessibility checker will help you with that too. Tables are a bit more accessible than graphs, though. Imagine, closing your eyes and trying to see a graph that just won't work. So those graphs that you put in need to be explained in the text. You can put it in to help sighted people better visualize the concept, but beneath the graph, you must say, this graph demonstrates, an inverse relationship between X and Y, which, means that, and you need to explain it either through alternative text or actually in the document itself, or ideally both. Because the alternative text could just say, this is a graph of X, Y, and Z, but then in the document you explain it in more detail and refer to the graph. So those are a few tips about document accessibility. It's not just for me. You just never know who might get your document, and you'll be creating a better experience for everyone. Um, Video accessibility, real quick, there was a video that we received that had just closed captioning. So I just sat there for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes, just waiting for the video to end. So I was not able to comprehend that video whatsoever. So closed captioning is great for, um, and I'm sorry, I don't think it wasn't closed captioning in this case. It was just, text in the video. Because closed captioning is usually there's someone talking so that you can hear, and then the closed captioning is for people who can't hear. Um, so that's important. Closed captioning must be able to hear also what people are saying. So don't just put text, put narration or a person speaking. And video description. Video description is something that narrates what's happening on screen in between when people are talking. So it could be like, David walks through the hall and closes the door, and then the video sort of continues. That helps describe the visual elements that we miss when we can't see. So video description. Sign language is also an option. If you really want to go above and beyond, have a sign language interpreter explain what's being said on the video. But closed captioning typically and video description are the two golden standards, if you will. And avoid fast-paced editing. I guess what I mean by that is, for people with low vision or people with other types of cognitive situations, you don't want to, have lots of flashing images and things that go by so fast that you don't have time to comprehend it. So just, think about the overall ease of comprehension of your video. This I'll go through real quickly, but there's universal design principles and inclusive design principles. And when you design universally, it means you're designing for everyone, and a good example I like to use too is everyone can use it in the same way. So, you're not putting, for example, your wheelchair ramp at the back of the building in the cargo area where, yeah, that's accessible, but it's not providing the same experience equally to everyone. So, your main entrance should be where that ramp is. So that's an example of providing an equitable use experience. It needs to be flexible. The design needs to accommodate a wide range of abilities. It needs to be simple and intuitive. It needs to have perceptible information in a way that the information can be effectively and easily understood by people. There needs to be a tolerance for error in your solution. Like a nav and wayfinding solution, there's a thing called drift, where you're able to sort of correct as the app discovers that you're off course a little bit. Um, Low physical effort, that's a fairly obvious one. And think about the size and space, just the radius that a mobility device needs to turn is a good example. So you can look up universal accessibility or universal design, and you'll find all these kind of principles that you need to think of when you're doing your solution. Um, and what I mean by that too, so in inclusive design principles, a thing that is related to the universal design and inclusive design is really my second point here about avoiding ableism and capacitism. And there are doctoral theses, I'm sure that's not how we say it, that are written on the topic, but think about like a city who provides garbage cans for people to put the garbage on the side of the street. There's a huge assumption being made that people have two legs and are strong enough to pull a garbage can to the side of the street. So that's ableism. Is you're thinking about your client in a way that you're assigning sort of like abilities to your client. You're assuming that they can walk upstairs. You're assuming that they can read something. And so and oftentimes it's done without ill intent, but it happens a lot. And so the main thing is to keep in mind, the main thing, you don't have to remember any of this except don't assume, ask. And that's the main thing behind inclusive design is don't assume you know what your users want. You need to ask them. You need to have them test it and give you feedback. And so it's only when you include real users in the design process that you can identify true usability gaps as well. You could look up all the accessibility guidelines, standards, best practices, and regulations and check off all the boxes, but you're still probably providing a poor experience, or there's a usability gap that nobody identified, maybe because of that intersectionality between digital and physical. And so that usability gap can only be found by real users, and then you can remediate it and provide the best possible experience for everyone. And the quantity and diversity of lived experience feedback is key to identifying issues for remediation. So, we've seen cases where a company will, let's say, hire a blind person and have them try the app and be like, yeah, we've had it tested by blind people, and the unfortunate fact is that, well, you're placing a large burden on one person, which is sometimes a bit unfair. And sometimes that might not even be that person's role in your organization. And so you're kind of using them for their disability. But more importantly, it's a question of, that one person might do things a specific way, but 10 other people might do it differently or use a different technology or have a different skill level. And so you're not getting a representative sample. So you need to think in numbers and diversity of your lived experience feedback that you're getting. And again, accessibility is for everyone. It's the best starting point for creating experiences for everyone to enjoy, regardless of their ability. And, if you think of, like the tips I gave you on making a document accessible, you're designing for anyone, that way everyone can use it. So or making a website. A good example is, when you do very good SEO optimization on your website, not only does it help marketing, but it also actually helps screen reader users, and it helps tremendously in terms of accessibility by like a side effect. So, again, it's not just the right thing to do, it's a great business decision. But the main thing to keep in mind about inclusive design, there's so many different ways of doing it and looking at it and techniques and methods, but the main thing is, don't assume that you know what your users want. Really only they can tell you. And even if you think you still should get that feedback. Be it just because you don't want to get a letter from a community saying, how could you do this without considering us? And so that's the tricky part about, you're not making mainstream cell phones here, you're making a solution that's for a community's very special, needs, if you will. So that's important to keep in mind. I hope I left enough time for Q&A, and thank you very much for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I love questions. And you can always find our website quite easily if you type CNIB Access Labs and reach out to us as well.
Thank you very much, David. Um,
Thank you.
So now it's time for the Q&A session. We are going to go through the questions that are in the Q&A tool, written in the Q&A tool. If you have any questions, you could put your questions in the Q&A tool, or if you would like to speak up, you could just raise your hand and we will unmute you. So you could ask your question.
Don't be shy, it's free. And there's no bad questions. If that's, just so you know, there's only bad answers.
We just received one question from Dr. Anis Arau. So,
Okay. Would someone be kind enough to read it out loud, please?
How detailed the comparative analysis should be in this given short time?
I might defer that question to others in the group since it's not specifically about accessibility.
I have some thoughts. This is Charlie. I work at General Motors in vehicle development, and we refer to this many times as benchmarking. And I'm very interested in what the competitor vehicles are doing on a daily basis. And so I think you can get a lot done in 10 minutes, in the way of just Googling looking for similar devices out there. I think probably many of you have already kind of looked out there to see if the ideas you've had are already out in the field and tried to get some inspiration. And so I don't think it's necessarily something that's going to be difficult for you to get done in the short time. And everybody's going to be a little bit different. But if you kind of gather, look, I found 5 other examples of somebody who does something similar to my idea, but this is why mine is different or unique or somehow better for the user. I think that's a good analysis to do in pretty quick order.
I think I totally agree. All your teams probably have had this kind of thought at the beginning when shaping and forming your solutions. It's just creating a discussion or kind of like a comparative analysis based on those thoughts that you had at the beginning of forming your solutions. We have, I think, another one. 2 questions. Should we edit our proposal file and video based on universal design and then submit them again? It's the first question. I don't think that you need to edit your proposal at this point, but when you're preparing your slide deck and sharing it, you could consider some of these points in your presentation file. For the video, if you would like to improve your video and add the link if you already have submitted your video, but you would like to improve it and showcase that, by all means, if you have time to do that and add a new link to your video that is improved, that would be, I think, helpful for you when you're pitching your solution, and also in future whenever you're sharing your video as well. There was another.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was just going to add a quick thing for PowerPoints. One of the ways that the screen reader reads a PowerPoint is in the order that elements were added to the slide, which is often problematic because, we just add things as we think of them. But there is a way to rearrange the order of all the elements on your slide so that you can make sure that the screen reader reads things in the order that you want someone to read them in. And that can be done with the Arrange menu. You go to the Arrange menu, and it's one of the first few options there. I think it's Arrange Elements or something like that. And unfortunately, it's not accessible for people like me, but you get like a view of all the layers, and then you can move them around and put them in the right order. So that's a little trick that very few people know to make that's why PowerPoints are often harder to make accessible.
I think you, David, answered some part of the second part of the question. There was a second part of Hoda's question. Do you have any template for presentation file, or can we make it based on our needs? There is no specific template. It will be based on your need, but keep in mind that it will be a maximum of 5 minutes, and you could design it in any form of template that you think is working best for you. Is there any other points on, on your side, David, about the template?
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember if Microsoft offers an accessible template, but even if it did, you would have to, as you build it, make sure you're putting in alternative text to images and things like that. So I think, use the accessibility checker and the few tips I gave, and that those are the main ones to keep in mind.
It's Louis. If I can just weigh in just for a quick second. I think the accessibility checker, like most automated tools, is a good starting point. If you rely exclusively on any accessibility checker that's an automated tool and stop on, after you've run the tool, your product will fail, plain and simple. There is no accessibility checker that's 100%. And the simple reason for that is because the way people perceive things and navigate them, technology hasn't quite grasped that. So if you use use the accessibility checker, whether it's Adobe or a web-based tool or the Microsoft accessibility checker, and use that as the guidepost to start making your product and documents more accessible. You're going to come closer than you would without it. David talked in his guidelines about don't just simply bold and increase the font on your headings or use graphics and tab to create bulleted lists. Use the pre-formatted styles, and that will give you a presentation or a document that's more easily navigable with any type of assistive technology. So assistive technology isn't just screen readers and screen magnification. We don't have time to get into that today, but if you can sort of follow David's guidelines that he put out there, you're going to have a bigger audience for your documents and your products, whatever they end up being, that's usable by a larger audience.
Mhm. Thanks, Louis.
Thank you, Lee. So let's move on to the question. What are the important headings to include in the 5 minutes presentation? How can we use those minutes as effectively as possible? Alan or Charlie, do you want to?
I'd refer back to some of the material you had in the beginning, Shabnam, as far as things we're looking for. I mean, for me, it's things like empathy and just, really demonstrating the user-centric aspect, that you worked with people that have lived experience to get feedback and maybe adjusted your concept accordingly, things like that. But yeah, I think there's some pretty simple, I don't know, maybe like 5 different bullets or so in your material at the beginning that probably sum that up pretty well.
Yes, I agree. This is the points that we mentioned here are mainly to guide you what are the criteria that we'll look at in that 5-minute presentation. So you could refer to these points and try to arrange your presentation slide deck in a way that you could cover these criteria. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not missing any question in between, and as I'm rolling up, I want to know the deadline to submit our video and presentation, and as well as the video, should it be the link of a YouTube video? A link of a YouTube video would be the most convenient way to put it on, but if you had difficulty and you wanted to upload a video, you could reach out to us and use the same folder that is going to share with you to upload your video over there. And about the deadline, you will receive an email very soon with the link to the Google Drive folder and instruction and the deadline and details. We have another question. Will the presenters have 3 minutes or 5 minutes for presentation? You will have 5 minutes for presentation, and then there will be about 3 minutes of Q&A afterward, follow that. So the 5-minute presentation is your time to present your solution. I think I have covered the questions that I'm saying. Please let me know if I have missed any. Okay. If there is any questions that you have in the meantime, please reach out to us. We are a few minutes over the time, so thank you very much for your participation and engagement. We appreciate your hard work and dedication. We apologize for the technical difficulty that we had at the beginning of this session today. as it was mentioned in your acceptance letter, you need to identify whether you attend in person or visually. If you have sent your response already, thank you, we have received it. But if you haven't decided yet, please make sure that you send your responses by August 16, end of this week, so we could make the arrangements accordingly. And if you have any questions or need additional support, please do not hesitate to reach out. Good luck with your presentation, and we'll look forward to meeting you on the Peach of Day presentation day. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Should we
Oh,
answer
I
that last
think,
question there?
oh yeah, I think I have two hands up. I'm going to just stay online too. I'm trying to unmute on myself. Hello, Mike. Hi, Dr. Tanzia. Can you hear us? You should. Your mic is open now, but you probably need to unmute.
I
Let
see
me
a
ask.
question.
Oh, yes,
in the
yes. Yeah, sure. I didn't see.
there, but
Oh, just now, yes. How many users should be tested on the physical device as an ideal case? So the number of the users really depend on the solution, depend on the the target group that you're trying to make the solution implementable for them. So there isn't a magic number to say. You might have done some statistical studies to show, for example, the significance of your solution and use those kind of methods. But honestly, there is no like a specific one magic number to say that would work for all the studies. But if you have done any statistical studies and would like to highlight that, that could be helpful. Dr. Sabo, please, your
Hello.
mic. Yes, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for this insightful session, which is really great and helpful. I just have a question on behalf of my team. Our students are going to present their proposal, and their little bit concern was due to some visas issues and the time shortage. Maybe we will go with the virtual presentation, not in person. And students have a concern, will it be equally worth, it will be equally given the same attention either in person or online. Personally, I 100% believe it has the equal worth and the equal attention will be given. But just for the sake of the student satisfaction, I am asking this question. So it doesn't matter either it will be virtual or in person. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. It's all the same. It's a hybrid event, and we would like to also make it, accessible and accommodate the condition for. That's why we want to have it with the virtual as well as the in-person, so everyone could join and don't have to worry about the visa process and all those things. So they all value the same, and we appreciate the hard work that your students are putting on this. And for sure, if the virtual is the way to go, I appreciate it if they could send out the email so we could have it on the list, so I don't mix up things. But they are the same.
Sure. Thank you so much. I gave them the same answer, and specifically after the pandemic, we are just in the mode of digital transformation now. No worries, no about the distance. Anywhere, it's equally worthwhile. But anyway, thank you so much. We
No
do
worries.
appreciate your continued support, follow-up, guidelines, hopefully, and wish you all the best in this initiative and your conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.